Hello, my name is Joanne Knight. Welcome to the barn, or rather, welcome to the living room because I couldn't pass up the view of the river today. I'm going to talk to you about piano keys today, and we're going to set some up, and I want to show you something that I came up with to make piano keys a little bit more interesting. I'm really getting into concatenating, even though we've had it for a long time, more and more and more, and figuring out some different things I can do with it. Laurie Thomas has a new set of piano keys, and she calls them Keys Gone Crazy. And her website is itsaquiltthing.com. Typically, what we see in piano keys is something set up like this one right here that I have on the computer screen, or maybe this one, which all are really pretty and they add interest to it. This is one with pearls that I like. But what I looked at whenever I saw these is the ones that we have been doing over and over and over again. And I wanted to add a little bit more interest to my quilt. So what I did was come up with a way to be able to put several of Laurie's piano keys together and make them quilt out continuously and have them work in the border corner feature of Creative Studio. So let me show you what I'm talking about. This is my quilt that I'm working on, and I took some of the blocks out and I added a border to it. And yes, the piano keys are hidden a little bit in a border, but it was like figuring out how to do them. And this is the quilt that I had to work on, so this is what I went with. They absolutely would look so much better in a quilt that they showed up in, but I wanted to figure out how to do them. So let's look at what happens with it. Typically with Border Corner, it's going to create a new quilt group, and what you can do is you take the piano key and you have to pay attention to the corner and where it stops and starts. And you see this one stops and starts on the inside. So it's not going to work with a piano key that starts and stops at the top. So what I'm going to do is select this one right here, and I'm going to hold down the control key, and I'm going to select my repeat, and I'm going to go to Border Corner, and I am cheating by snapping to the grid. And yes, I am in standalone, and you can set up a border corner in standalone just like you can set up an edge to edge in standalone with version 7. So I'm just clicking out my spots because there's a couple of things I want you to see. This is the way that this border would set up with this corner. Creative Studio makes you put the length in first. So I'm just going to put in a 45. And by the way, if I were chunking the quilt, which is what is typical, I would put in a 45 for my length, whatever my length is on the quilt, and it would give me side repeats. If I am turning the quilt, which is what I do, I put in a length of 1 inch, and that way Creative Studio knows that it cannot symmetrically put repeats on the side, and I don't have to go back and delete those. Now, in version 7, you're going to see that this is typically what you get if you have what is called a square corner, like this one is right here. In other words, it fits in the corner just like a regular block would. If I change this to square oriented, you're going to see that the pattern then sets up the way that it needs to. So this is a typical setup that you would do, and I'm going to click OK. What I did on mine, and I'm going to go back to my border corner group, is I took piano keys and I put several of them together and then set it up with border corner so that I had just a little bit more interest. So let me show you how I did that. I'm going to go and select the piano keys that I want. They're going to need to start at the top. And any of those that I want repeated, like the line work, I'm going to have to select them and I'm going to have to duplicate that pattern because I need to put it in there more than one time on this setup. So what I'm going to do is select that one and I'm going to scroll down in my list and you can see that I've already done that. And I'm going to take the ones that I like and I try not to have the elements that are similar next to each other. So I'm going to select another one of the line work and now maybe I'll select the pearl, select another line work and maybe select this zigzag right here. And then I'm going to select another line work and then select the diamonds. I'm going to give myself a new quilt group because repeat patterns will not automatically give you a new quilt group. So I'm going to select the repeat patterns and I'm going to left click on the screen and that places the first pattern. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lock my repeats and rows and I'm going to add repeats and you're going to see that it just adds these repeats along here and gives me all of the multiples that I wanted of these patterns. And I'm going to do that until it starts to repeat, which is right here with this line work. And then you can see the loops. So I'm going to back off of this 2 numbers and now I have a set of repeats and they connect and they will sew continuously. So I'm going to say okay. I'm going to select those patterns. I don't have to worry about the size because Border Corner is going to adjust that for me. And I'm going to right click and I'm going to save the pattern and I would put multiple after this or multi, whichever way. And I would save that to my database because it's one that I might use over and over again. So I'm going to hit save and close. Now what I can do, and you're going to see that at the top right here, I'm going to select my corner. I'm going to hold down my control key, and you don't want this guy to be 12 or 14 different repeats because unless you have a really long border, you want to kind of hold it down a little bit so that Creative Studio can place that symmetrically. My border on this quilt happened to be 6 inches. So I'm going to click on border corner and I have changed my grid to 6 inches and I'm going to click and it's not going to be the length of the border that I had, but that's okay. It'll show you what I'm talking about. Click that one, then this one. I only get 8 clicks. That hasn't changed. Now I'm going to put in my 1-inch length because I am absolutely going to turn this quilt to be able to do that. And I'm going to say square oriented. And now I'm going to say okay. And you can see how I came up with the look that I have on my quilt. And I just love it. It gives it so much more interest to be able to do that this way. So that's a real easy way for you to set up multiple repeats in Piano Keys. And I will leave you with showing you what the mock-up is for my quilt. I did load it horizontal because I want to be able to sew the long edge of the Piano Keys first. But if I scroll in, you can see that this is what my quilt looks like. And I've got a couple of more rows to do on that, and I will have this done. And I'm real tickled with the way that it turns out. So I hope that gives you a little bit more interesting way to be able to do Piano Keys in a border. By all means, pick a fabric that they're going to show up in rather than one like I did where they're a little bit muted. Now I better get back to work and let you get back to work. Thank you.